Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Asian Football Show. I am Arya, joined with my beautiful co-host Erfan. Erfan, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very good. Very excited to get into this podcast. Lots of exciting action. Yeah, let's get straight into it.
So this is episode 31. We're going to be covering, of course, the World Cup qualifiers, the Asian Champions League Elite, Champions League 2, Challenge League, the Women's Champions League, the Asian Cup qualifiers, Friendlies, Beach, Soccer Asian Cup, and of course the Women's Asian Cup qualifier draw. So yeah, let's get straight into it with the World Cup qualifiers, Erfan, shall we?
Yeah, of course. So I guess I'll take you through the results. Um, in Group A, um, Uzbekistan played against Kyrgyzstan, which they won 1-0. Was Iran won 2-0 against the UAE, with some extra time. We'll get into that later. North Korea lost 5-1 to Qatar. Good win for Qatar then. But then Qatar lost 3-1 to Kyrgyzstan just a few days later. Very disappointing for the Asian Cup champions. Iran drew 2-2 with Uzbekistan in Tehran. Uh, and then North Korea lost 2-1 to the UAE after a 98-minute goal by Sultan Adel. So, Arya, you want to give us your initial thoughts?
Yeah, sure. Okay, we'll get into Iran later, right? Because I think it's a lot to talk about. North Korea, I think now are mathematically out, right? If I'm not mistaken, so they're officially out of the World Cup. Kyrgyzstan is holding on by a thread. You know, they did lose to Uzbekistan, as you said, 1-0, but they had that very impressive 3-1 victory against Qatar. Lucas Mendez didn't have a good game as he scored a goal and then got a red card right after, which ultimately cost Qatar the game. So Kyrgyzstan is still there. I mean, it's good on them too. You know, they're really trying their best to hang on to this World Cup qualifying campaign. So who knows? I mean, they're gonna have a few tough games to come. They're playing North Korea, which is a very beatable game, and they're playing against Emirates, which if they do have a good result um, against them, that can also help them for qualifying to the playoffs. I think it's too late for them to qualify directly, but hey, Kyrgyzstan, good on them, man. I mean, they're hanging on by a thread. As for the UAE, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't really impressed in the first game against Iran. I definitely thought they would have come with more, especially considering the last game that we played against them. But they just didn't do anything, to be quite honest with you. And I know the Iran game was an anomaly. You know, we had that lighting issue at the Azadi Stadium. Actually, that game was very funny because Sadar Azmoun's goal actually broke two international football records, maybe even just not just international, just football in general. I'm not too sure. I know for a fact it did beat the latest goal scored I think in a first half, and as well as just the most amount of extra time added in a football half in international football, which previously, by the way, was held again by Iran against England at the 2022 FIFA World Cup. So that's it's a bit of fun facts for you there. But yeah, I wasn't really impressed with the UAE. And then against the against North Korea, sorry, yeah, they got that 90th minute winner. I still think they weren't that impressive. I expected more of them. But you know, ultimately they got the 3 points against North Korea, so uh, I think it's going to be between them and Qatar to see who goes through the next round. As for Qatar, they had a fantastic game against North Korea. Akram Afif, this guy is literally carrying Qatar, right? I think it's safe to say. Had a good game in the first game, had a good game in the second as well, although Qatar weren't great. As for Uzbekistan, you know, they're just that much closer to their first World Cup. And they were actually winning against Iran until Iran finally woke up. I'll let you talk more about that. Fun. And am I missing any other teams? No. And then, yeah, like I said, North Korea is out. So not much really to add. What about you, Erfan? What do you think?
Yeah. So third and fourth qualify for the next round, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
UAE and Qatar, yeah, they're likely going to qualify for the next round. Qatar don't deserve it at all. I think Kyrgyzstan deserve it much more than them, considering the expectations. Yeah, I'll talk a bit about UAE before going on to Iran. So UAE actually sacked their head coach Paulo Bento after after their this international window. Yeah, very disappointing performance against Iran, and they should have beaten North Korea much easier. I mean, it was basically a home game for them because they were playing in Saudi Arabia. Um, but yeah, disappointing performance. Fabio Lima, of course, great player. He got the first goal for them. Just before the end of the first half, North Korea equalized. Very shaky defense, and even though they brought in all these naturalized players like Caio Lucas, Luan, Meloni, and all these guys, I still don't see them having the quality. Um, even I remember seeing a tweet saying that, oh, there's all these Brazilian players who are playing in the UAE, but still it was an Emirati player who scored the goal for them in the 98th minute. Sultanado, he had a great Asian Cup. Was injured for a bit, but now he's back. I'm sure he'll be a very good addition for them. He's only 20 years old. So yeah, UAE, they still have some hope. Obviously, the game against Uzbekistan will be huge in June. If they win that, then they could possibly advance directly as well. But will they have the quality to do it? I'm not so sure. Moving on to Iran, um, I
There's a
can't.
lot to talk about. There's a
There's a
lot to
lot
talk
to talk
about
about. Yeah,
for Iran.
yeah,
A lot.
yeah. I don't think we can complain much about the UAE game. I think that
Yeah.
was a straightforward performance, but it was just the UAE. I mean, historically, we've always beaten them. They've never been a problem for us. But Uzbekistan, this is now the fourth draw against them. I think we should be, usually they're the ones happy with the draw, but this time it's us who are happy with the draw.
I would agree. So I mean, it's just shaky defense. Once again, I see. Listen, if you're on Twitter, you're gonna see a lot of people say, "Oh, it wasn't Ali Nouriz's fault. The goal didn't come from them." But the issue is, he's the one putting those players in. Doesn't matter if tactically it wasn't his fault. He's the one putting the players there, anyways. We've said it a million times here and on other podcasts, on Twitter, on every social media platform possible. Players like Shoja Khalizadeh should not be called up. He we could have won if it wasn't for his mistakes. I do call me crazy. I don't think Uzbekistan were that great either in that game. The goals purely came from individual mistakes. I mean, I'm not gonna say they were bad. They weren't bad. I just don't think they were like amazing. Um, um, and the fact that it took an injured Taremi to save Harinuri's ass, quite literally, is something that needs to be talked about. It's not normal. This shouldn't be happening. The expectations are much more higher than that, in my opinion. It's just not good enough. Osmoon didn't have a good game against Uzbekistan. Should have scored. No, not okay. It's harsh. He didn't have a terrible game, but he could have won the game for us. I feel like Mohebi not playing was a big factor too. I feel like if he was there, I think we could have won. I don't think he would have missed those opportunities. Jahanbakhsh, I don't think it's good for me to talk about him because we'll get this podcast suspended. But as much as I love Ali Jahanbakhsh, man, I think these past two games have clearly shown he's not starter material anymore. And Izzatullah, he came back, right? Wasn't impressed with him. Wasn't impressed with him at all. The guy was just shooting, skying the ball. Like, I
Do you
don't
remember that
know.
one shot?
Yeah, like, I don't
Oh my God.
understand what his game plan is. Is it just to shoot whenever he has the ball? It just doesn't make any sense to me. But that's Iran's problems aside. I'm sure you've heard the rumors. Ghalinoui's job is at a very shaky state at the moment, so maybe that'll change in June. We're gonna have to wait and see. There's no official news about it, but um, it's not a positive environment in the Iranian national team. Even so, qualifying for the World Cup.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I also want to mention how happy I am that Taremi scored those two goals. I think it's been a difficult few months for him. Not playing much at Inter. Even with the Iranian national team, his last goal came against Kyrgyzstan in the first week of qualifiers. So yeah, I'm very happy for the guy. Showed his quality. That first goal was phenomenal, and hopefully this can shift on and he can continue his form with Inter and hopefully the national team.
And then I think one last player I want to highlight, not from Iran, from Qatar, is Akram Afif. Like I've said, I mean, come on, 3 assists, 1 goal against North Korea, and then he got that assist against Kyrgyzstan. I mean, he's just dropping masterclasses after masterclass. Not even just for Qatar, but for Al Sadd as well. I mean, we've seen it in the Champions League, we've seen it in the Qatari League. This guy is like, I'm looking at his I don't know if you guys can see this, but look, he just has blue ratings, quite literally just blue ratings on SofaScore. Um, Not that you should be judging a player purely from SofaScore ratings, but if the guy has constant blue ratings, it means something. So I wanted to give my flowers to Akram Afif. Yeah, let's move on to Group B.
Yeah, yeah, carrying Qatar on his back. Now, yeah, Group B. Okay,
Yeah,
match day 6. Match day 7. Sorry, South Korea drew 1-1 against Oman. Iraq drew 2-2 against Kuwait. What a game that was. We'll get onto that. Jordan beat Palestine 3-1 to complete a double over them. And then in match day 8, South Korea drew Jordan again. Another draw for South Korea, 1-1. That's 2 home draws for them this window. Palestine beat Iraq 2-1. Another amazing game.
yeah, we're
Uh,
gonna be talking about that in a bit. Yeah.
yeah, we need to talk about Iraq a lot, I think.
Yes.
Oman beat Kuwait 1-0 away to almost certainly end Kuwait's hopes for qualifying. Yeah, again, Arya, initial thoughts on those games?
Yeah. I think we just have to talk about how poor Iraq have been. I mean, has it been confirmed that Jesus Casas is officially sacked? Because I'm seeing like two sides. People saying yes, he has been sacked, and another side saying no, it's not official yet. I don't think there's been an official statement, if I'm not mistaken.
When there's all these medias reporting it and
Yeah,
some of the members from the federation are speaking against him,
yeah,
and the fact that he just left the country, I think that
yeah,
almost certainly means he's
yeah,
yeah, he's leaving.
yeah. I mean, as of the time of the recording, he hasn't officially been sacked, but I mean, with everything going on, don't be surprised if he gets sacked by the time this podcast is out, probably. But yeah, they've just been disappointing. I mean, I don't understand. And they haven't been amazing this qualifying round. I mean, they've been very shaky, but at least they still managed to get through at the end of the game and winning them. But now it's a complete different story. I mean, a 2-2 against Kuwait, which is the worst team in that group, and then you lose to Palestine, who again haven't been doing well. It's not good. You drop point against the two worst teams of the group, and you've given a huge chance to the other side, especially Jordan. I mean, essentially, Iraq's fate is essentially now in Jordan's hands, essentially. And with how Jordan have been playing, I think Iraq are in trouble. Personally speaking, I think they're in trouble. And they've got to win against South Korea, and then they have Jordan hosting, or sorry, Jordan is hosting them in June as well. So it's going to be a very tough game or two sets of games for Iraq. Best of luck to them, I guess. That's the only thing I can really say. But we're just going to have to wait and see. What do you think, Erfan?
Yeah, I said this on Twitter also. I think that this sacking or possible sacking of Jesus Casas has been long overdue. They had that horrible performance in the Gulf Cup. And even in these qualifiers, yeah, sure, they won 3 games, but all those games have been 1-0 wins. And if the other team scored a goal, things could have been very different by now. They're very lucky to even be at this stage. And yeah, just that game against Kuwait was atrocious. They only won because the Kuwaiti attacker. I mean, they didn't even win. They only drew. I mean, because the Kuwaiti attacker did something stupid, and he should be wasting time at that time, to be honest. But he decided to shoot the ball, which ended badly for them. And then yeah, that loss against Palestine. Palestine, which I want to talk about as well. Amazing performance by them. They had who was the player's name who gave both the assists? Could you help me out here, Arya?
So which country? Sorry,
For Palestine, who gave the assists
for
for these
Palestine, I
goals?
believe it was Adam Kaed. I think it was.
Adam Kher. Yeah, yeah. He came on as a substitute, and he gave both those assists from the corners. Yeah, great player to look out for. And yeah, good performance for Palestine. Keeps their hope alive.
Yeah. Well, listen. I mean, I'm looking at the standing here for Group B. I mean, Iraq are currently third with 12 points, so it's not. They're not like out of the World Cup, but as I've said, I think for direct qualification, it's in Jordan's hands now. I think Palestine and Kuwait are just way too behind to be catching up Oman or Iraq. But I think in that group, I think the four teams going, um, up technically. I think it's quite clear now, unless something dramatic happens. But even that, I think it's isn't it mathematically too late? Like I think Palestine have to win both games, Oman have to lose both of theirs, so Iraq are still technically there for the next round. I don't see that changing, but for direct
But their
qualification, I mean,
games are very hard.
exactly. You had two. I'm not going to say easy opponents, but you had the quote unquote weaker sides, and this could have been it. That could have been it. You had those 6 points, and you would have been flying. Um, but they've made things harder on themselves, and we'll see. We'll see. This
Yeah,
is AFC qualifying.
now in the next match day, if South Korea, I mean, if Iraq draw points to South Korea, so if they either draw or lose, and if Jordan win against Oman, which is very possible, then that's it. Jordan qualifying for the World Cup.
Yeah,
So
essentially.
yeah, looking very difficult for Iraq. Um, any other team? South
Any
Korea. Let's talk about
others?
South
No, I
Korea.
mean Palestine was the. Oh, I guess we can talk about South Korea too. I mean, listen, I understand. I understand. There's been injuries and stuff. Kim and Jae didn't play. Yeah, had a few other injuries, but your team is still far, far superior in quality compared to the teams you're playing against, and a draw isn't good enough. I've seen lots of people on Korean football Twitter coming for the manager's head, saying he has to be sacked. Bit of a similar situation to Amir Ali Nui in some cases.
Both
As
local
in he's just
managers.
yeah, as in he's just not good enough. Um, but we're gonna have to wait and see what happens in this June window. But I think South Korea are safe, even with those two draws. I think they're still well clear. I think.
Yeah, I think they just have too much quality to
Mhm.
not qualify for the World Cup.
Or
But
yeah,
yes, Son was ghosting as well during this international window.
Son
He's nowhere to be
Heung-min.
seen.
Son Heung-min is a weird one. I mean, there's always this debate of he doesn't turn up for his national team. He does, which I don't think is fair for him. I think he has turned up in very big games. But it's just that he has those games where he's just non-existent, and that's something that Korea have to look into because he's on paper Asia's best player. Got to be doing better than that, especially against again teams that Korea are expected to beat. But like I said, I don't think it's like a major concern as of now. You're still first. You're pretty much through. But it's something to be looking at for the future, for sure.
Yeah, it could cost them on later on in the
Yeah.
World Cup or Asian Cup. Uh, Two things I want to mention before we move on from this group. I think there was a very good window for Oman, a draw away at Korea and a win away at Kuwait.
Yes.
They've yeah they're now almost guaranteed a place in the next round at least, and they're only 3 points behind Jordan. So yeah, it's looking a bit hard, but you never know with Asian qualifiers. So props to them. I think they deserve it.
Yeah.
And then also hard luck to Kuwait. I think they should be happy with the stage they've reached in. Even just making it to this round after like about a decade of them missing out on this round and missing out on the Asian Cup. I think it's good for them,
Yeah.
and I think it's only upwards from here. And they've been very unlucky as well. I mean, they've had several times where they conceded last-minute goals against Palestine, against Iraq, and yeah, it could have been differently for them, but I think it's only upwards for them from here.
Perfect. Let's move
Um,
on to Group C. I'll go through the results for you, Erfan. I'll give you a little break here. Australia beating Indonesia 5-1. That's also something we're going to have to talk about. Japan beating Bahrain 2-0 to qualify them for the FIFA World Cup, becoming the first nation actually outside of the hosts to qualify for the World Cup. So that's cool. Saudi Arabia beating China 1-0. And then round 8 would be Japan drawing to Saudi Arabia 0-0. And then China losing to Australia 2-0, and then Indonesia beating Bahrain 1-0. So, what do you make of this group?
I want to talk about uh, Saudi Arabia a bit here because they had an okay performance against China. They really should be winning more, especially when China was down to 10 men. But at the end, Salman Tasari with the goal, obviously. Um, but that game against Japan, they actually played without any defensive midfielders there. I believe Kanu was injured, some other players were missing as well. But it was a good defensive performance. I mean, they didn't give Japan any real opportunities except maybe one chance in the first half. But other than that, I think Saudi Arabia, they held their own. Sure, Japan had already qualified, but they still came in with a full squad. They played with their first team, and I think Saudi Arabia played well, and
You
maybe
mean, do you
that
mean
is
Japan played with their first team or Saudi played with their first team?
Japan played with their first team. Did
I
I
mean,
say
there was
that
a
wrong?
rotated squad, Erfan, I think. Well, I mean,
You think
the thing
so?
with Japan is the quality is so good that, like, at that point, it could still be their main team. So I feel you.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, I think Saudi Arabia maybe a glimpse of hope
Mm.
for the June qualifiers. Because if they can win against Bahrain in June, then that game against Australia in the last match day is going to be huge. That game's going to be held in Saudi Arabia as well. So yeah, that could probably be like a World Cup qualifier final if things go the right way.
That
What
kind
do
of
you think?
reminds me of that Iran Australia game back in
Oh yeah, yeah.
'97. That gives me those kind of vibes.
Even though
I
we
think that,
weren't there, it's just looking at the
yeah,
videos
yeah.
and
I'm acting like I was alive at that moment. No, I wasn't, unfortunately. But anyways, a team I want to highlight is Australia. I think they finally woke up. I mean, that was just a dominant win against Indonesia 5-1. Which, listen, originally, I even hit up Kenta, which, by the way, I forgot to say in the beginning of this podcast, he wasn't able to join today due to scheduling conflicts. And I told him, I'm like, listen, man, I'm not convinced with this Indonesia side. And he told me, he's like, you know what, you're being a little too harsh. Give them the game against who did they play? Jesus Christ,
Bahrain.
um, Bahrain. Yes, Bahrain. And I'm like, okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And yeah, they delivered. Ole Romani was very, very good. Um, there was this one tweet that kind of went viral on Twitter where like their full 11 but one player, Marcelo Ferdinand, were all foreign players, all Dutch players, if I'm not mistaken.
All
Uh,
born in the Netherlands, yeah.
yeah, which sparked some debate, sparked a lot of debate on football Twitter, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, Australia, they woke up. I think Jackson Irvine was very good. Vilu Pillai was very, very good. We're gonna go through like our team of the week, which is a new thing that we're bringing onto this podcast after we're done with the groups. But yeah, geez, man, Australia. I'm happy they finally woke up because they weren't impressive in the past rounds. So
Yeah, I want
hopefully,
to talk about Australia
yeah.
as well.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, people might say, oh, they were easy games, Indonesia and China. But let's be real, it's not as easy to win these type of games because the first rule of these games are win the games that you need to. For example, the games against Indonesia, Bahrain, China. With all due respect to those teams, these are the
Yeah.
teams that all your Japans, Australias, Irans should be beating easily, and we've seen it in many instances where it hasn't happened. So just the fact that they won those two games so calmly, I think it's good for them and says a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And then for Bahrain, I mean, listen, they didn't score a single goal, but when you're playing against Japan, it's difficult to do so. I still think a 2-0 victory isn't even that bad um, for Bahrain. But in Indonesia, yeah, I'm looking at the standings right now. They're on 6 points. There's still technically the group is still technically open for that fourth spot, even that third spot. To be honest, it's not completely over for any of these teams, even China, as crazy as it seems. If the right result goes for them and wrong results for the others, maybe we can see something. So keep your eye out still on Group C. I mean, Japan's already through, but then that second, third, and fourth spot is going to be very, very hot in June. We're gonna have to wait and see. For Indonesia, I'm not, like I've said, I wasn't really convinced in that first game, and I know it's Australia, but with how good they were under Shin Jae-won, I was expecting a little bit more than a 5-1, maybe like a 2-0 loss or something. But no, they were completely outplayed in that game. And then against Bahrain 1-0, they did the job done. And I still want to see more from Patrick Kluivert before I make like a decision. I don't think 2 games is enough to judge the man. China just not good enough, really. But they're playing Bahrain and they're playing Indonesia, so they got the quote unquote easier team. So if they can somehow get 6 points from that, then it turns very, very interesting. So China is not out. They're not out. They just had a very tough two games. Australia, Saudi, some of the best teams in that group. So that's it for Group C, unless there's anything you want to add. If not, I think we should move on to the team of the week, shall we? Or team of the round, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I just want to add that I'm still very disappointed of what Indonesia did and changing coaches at that point. That's all I want
yeah.
to say.
That's it's so unfair on the manager. It's so unfair. I mean, you do that against Saudi Arabia, which is probably the best result in your history, dare I say, or one of at least, and you sack him. Like, can you imagine that happening in Europe? Like, where I don't know, man. I mean, it's difficult to say, but like, let's say I don't know, you're what's a team that could be equivalent to Indonesia? Like a lower end European team wins against like a Spain or something, and then that manager gets sacked. It's like, okay,
Like
okay,
let's
that's
say
just
a Bosnia or Romania when it wins against um, England or Spain, and then they sack
yeah.
the
And
manager.
then they sack the
Doesn't make
manager.
sense.
You're just
Yeah.
like, okay, that's weird. But hey, we'll see where that leads to. Let's move on to the team of the match day, 7 and 8. Fun, I think I'll go for it. I'll say the player. So this is a team that all three of us have decided on. So Kenta, Erfan, and I at the goalkeeper position. Listen, there wasn't one keeper that was like an absolute standout. There was a few candidates. We had Matthew Ryan as our choice, but we could have put Barrow in. I think he was decent in that UAE game. Actually saved us against Uzbekistan as well of that Fazlayev shot, if you remember. I don't remember who else we put in. I think Tokotai from Kyrgyzstan. But no, I think Matthew Ryan was the better of the bunch. So no complaints there. We went for a 3-4-2-1. We went with three defenders at the back. So we went with Ko Itakura.
I'll have the picture on the screen right now so you can see it.
All right, perfect. And then for Ko Itakura, that was actually Kenta's pick, but his reasoning made lots of sense, and he was very, very good. We went with Yazan Al Arab, plays for Seoul in Korea. He was very good as well. And then the center back, the one that's remaining, it was between Jason Giria or Cameron Burgess from Australia. Statistically wise, I think Burgess just got the edge, but I guess if you'd go for one of the other, um, it would have been valid. I mean, or you can just put Shoja Khalizad in there. That's up to you. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. At the right mid spot, we put Ali Janov from Uzbekistan. I think he had two very good games against Iran and against Kyrgyzstan as well. And then Jackson Irvine, which for some would be the man of both match days. He was very, very good in both games. And then you've got Nishan Velupillai as well. His Australian teammate. And then that left mid, I went with Ole Romani. I mean, he scored both goals for Indonesia. I know they lost 5-1, but I think individually, if we're going off of individual performance here, that's the point of this graphic here. I think he was very, very good. And then the two cams, we went for Akram Afif, which again would be another candidate for the player of both match days. Abosbek Fazulayev, I think, was very good in both games. And then striker was a little bit tough, but we all decided to go with Taremi purely just because, I mean, he single-handedly got Iran that point that led them to the World Cup. He single-handedly took Iran to that. So that's our pick. Let us know what you guys think. Do you disagree with some? Do you agree with some? Let us know on social media or in the comments, wherever you're watching this from. So yeah,
Yeah,
Erfan, anything to add?
yeah, just Taremi, big game player. 3 World Cups in a row where his goal took us to the World Cup now. And just an honorable mention to Adam Kaid, which we also mentioned earlier. Uh, yeah, I think he could have also made the team, but too much quality up front. So unfortunately for him, there's no space in the team. But yeah,
Perfect. Let's move on now to the round of 16 of the AFC Champions League Elite. We're going to try and give as much of a detailed analysis for each game, but we also don't want to give a 2-hour, analysis on every single game. I'll go through the results, and I'll let Erfan do the analysis here because I think he watched way more than I did. I've watched a few games, but not enough to give a full-on analysis. Estelal, drawing that first game, 0-0 was it? Um, and unfortunately, it was a good result, 0-0. I mean, against Al Nasser, very good result. but we're going to talk on later with what happened in that second game. Al Wasl and Al Sadd 1-1. Shanghai Port Yokohama F Marinos 1-0 to Yokohama. 0-0 game between Buriram and JTT, which I remember. I think Kenta and I were very excited for this fixture as well. Pakhotor beating Al Hilal 1-0 in the first leg. Very impressive result. Al Rayyan losing 3-1 to Al Ahli. Vissel Kobe getting the job done against Guangzhou in the first leg. 2-0. Shanghai Shenhua against Kawasaki beating them 1-0. Good result for the Chinese club as well. Al Sadd beating Al Wasl 3-1. So that's them knocking Al Wasl out 4-1 on aggregate. Then we come to your team, Erfan, or my team as well. It's more your team than my team. Al Nasser just destroying Estelal 3-0 away, unfortunately. Beating them 3-0 on aggregate. And then Yokohama F Marinos beating Shanghai Port. I believe it was 5-1 on aggregate. And then Buriram United getting that 1-0 win that got them through. Lots of talks about what happened in that game. Al Ahli winning 2-0 against Al Rayyan, knocking them out. And then Al Hilal coming back from that 1-0 loss, destroying Patators 4-0. That was more expected. And then Kawasaki 4-0 against Shenhua. They, if I'm not mistaken, also came from behind. And then for me, the strangest one, Guangzhou coming from behind. No, to beat Vissel Kobe 3-2. That did lots of waves in the Japanese football scene. Big comeback from Guangzhou. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let you do the analysis, and we'll move on.
Okay. Okay, so for the West region, let's start off with Partakor Al Hilal. Very good win by Partakor in the first leg. I mean, it was not only a win, it was a game where they could have scored more as well. Fantastic performance from Ali Janov, who's been playing good for not only the national team but for Partakor as well. Um, and yeah, it was a good performance. But then in Riyadh, Al Hilal showed them who's the real boss with a 4-0 victory. So yeah, not much too surprising, but good on Pastakor for managing to beat them at home. And then in the other game, yeah, Arayan versus Al Ahly. This was a pretty straightforward game. Al Ahly just beat them by 2 goals in both games. Yeah, Al Rayyan had a bit of hope when they pulled it back in the first leg. It was 2-1, but Faras Al Buraikan ended their hopes with a last minute goal. Esteghlal Al Nasser. What do I say? First leg and second leg, completely different stories. In the first leg, great performance. Esteghlal had some chances. Ram Rizayan had a very good header where he just missed. Fantastic performance from Hossein Hoseiny, Saleh Hardoni, all these guys. Second leg though, yeah, a very bad performance. A mistake from Hossein, not only Hosseini and the defense, I would say, for the first 2 goals, and also a red card in the end of the first half. Um, just yeah, there was no hope left. I'm actually happy we only lost 3-0 after that red card. Could have been more, I think. Hosseini had some good saves in the second half. Al Wasl versus Assad. Al Wasl completely bottled it here. They should have won the first leg by more than 1 goal, but they drew that game. And then Assad took advantage in the second leg and won 3-1. Moving on to the East region, Yokohama versus Shanghai. Um, 3 goals across 2 games for Anderson Lopez. Great player. And yeah, that was the first Chinese team eliminated. The other Chinese team, Shanghai Shenhua, also eliminated by Kawasaki. 5-0 on aggregate. 4-1 on aggregate, sorry. They actually won the first game in China, but then Kawasaki won 4-0 in Japan. Very similar story to the Pakhtakar Al Hilal game. Buriram versus Johor. Yeah, this was the controversial game you were talking about, Arya. First game ended 0-0 in Thailand, and then in the second leg in Malaysia, which I expected Johor to win. Great crowd, great attendance. I think it was around 35,000 people in the stadium. But yeah, 58-minute goal from Sufanat Moenita won the game for Buriram. Johor did get an equalizer in the last minute, but it was called off due to. Do you remember, Arya? What was the reason?
No, I don't.
Was it
No, I don't remember.
offside? Was it handball? I can't remember. I won't say for sure because I can't remember. But it was very controversial.
Yeah,
That's all I'll say. And then in the last game, Vissel Kobe, your team, Arya, was winning 2-0 in the first leg against Gwangju, but then a fantastic performance from Gwangju in the second leg. Tied it 2-2 um, in normal time, and then who else but Jasira Sani, who's been
yeah,
phenomenal this tournament, to win the game before penalties. Wow.
yeah. There's not much more to add. I think we can talk about the next fixtures. Al Hilal playing Guangzhou, Al Ahly playing Buriram United, Yokohama F Marinos playing Al Nasser, and Kawasaki playing Al Sad. I don't know if you want to make predictions or do we just leave it at that.
Um,
It's up to you.
we can make some predictions. We can make some predictions.
Okay,
These games will all be held in Saudi Arabia, by the way, from
exactly.
the quarterfinals till the final.
All right,
Uh,
let's just go through this really quickly. Al Hilal Guangzhou. I think this is where Guangzhou goes out. Although they've been fantastic, I think Al Hilal is just too good. And then Al Ahly and Buriram United. As much as I want Buriram United to continue, I think this is where the dream ends as well. And then Yokohama F Marinos and Al Nasser. That's a very tough game. But Al Nasser, if they bring their full team and they don't do the whole like, oh, I'm gonna bring half of the team and whatever. I think Al Nasser will edge it just because they have more quality. But you can never count Yokohama F Marinos out in the Champions League. And then Kawasaki Frontale against Al Sad. I'll go with Kawasaki, but I think if this is going to be one of those games where Akram Afif is just going to be a game changer, then it could turn things interesting. But on paper, I'll stick with the team. That's the favorites on paper. I think it will be Kawasaki Frontale. Would they even be the favorites on paper? I'm pretty sure they are, right? They should be.
I think they should be. This is a very hard game to predict, actually. Don't get me
Exactly.
wrong. Yeah.
Exactly.
My predictions, I agree with Al Hilal. I think Al Hilal will win against Gwangju. Same with Al Ahly. I think unfortunately this is the end for Boram United. But I'll go with Yokohama to beat Al Nassr.
Okay.
I've seen Al Nassr are very vulnerable at the back these days,
It could true.
especially in the
Yeah.
league. Yeah, I think Yokohama are a better team than Esteghlal, so I think they will make Al Nassr pay. Kawasaki, oh, this is a hard game to predict.
It's
Like
very
I said,
difficult.
I think this one could go to extra time or
It could.
penalties. I think Kawasaki will edge it. I'll
Okay.
go with Kawasaki.
Cool. Let's move on to the Champions League 2, where most of our predictions last time are actually out.
I
Um,
think almost all of our
almost
predictions are
all of our
wrong.
predictions were wrong, and this is like all three of our predictions. Like we said Tractor to go through, they got eliminated. We said Hiroshima, well, although I mean, it's a different story for Hiroshima, but Shabab Al Ahli also out on penalties. Let's go through the results. So Tractor Al Tawun in that first leg 0-0. I don't understand how dominant you can be and not score a goal. Tractor were the better team by a mile. They couldn't score a single goal. It was one of those games where the ball just did not want to end in the back of the net. And they got paid for, and you know that you could see that it affected them in the second game because they lost because of that. If they would have scored, I think that was game over because that game went off the penalties. Hiroshima against Lion City Sailors. So originally Hiroshima won the game. I don't remember what the scoreline was off the top of my head. I think it
I
was
think
6-1, something like that. 5-1, 6-1, whatever it
um,
is. Doesn't really matter. They had a player on the field that wasn't supposed to be playing. And because of that, AFC
it was
gave.
6-1, yeah.
It was 6-1, I was right? Okay, cool. And because of that, they got a 3-0 awarded to them, which is huge for Lion City Sailors. I mean, they were hopeless. 6-1 to get those 3 goals, meaning that they're going to be 3-0 up at home against Hiroshima. And we'll talk about the second game in a bit. So Lion City Sailors won on technicality, 3-0 because of that player that shouldn't have been playing. Shabab Al Ahly 1-1 draw against Sharjah. Again, wasn't really impressed with Shabab Al Ahly. I think they could have done more. Jeonbuk Hyundai losing 2-0 to Sydney, actually. Sydney, pretty good result for them. Then we go to that 2-2 Al Tawun Tractor game, which, like I've said, went all the way to penalties. Tractor lost. It was a very good game. Very, very entertaining game from 0 to 120, and even the penalties. But they got punished, Tractor, for not scoring in that first game. Like I said, it's just not good enough. You have millions of chances to score and you don't. It's gonna come back and bite you, and that's exactly what happened to them in that game. So Al Tawun go through, and then Lion City Sailors against Hiroshima. So everyone was like, okay, is Hiroshima gonna try and come back here? But Lion City Sailors actually scored a goal in the 20th minute, which brings them to a 4-0 aggregate lead. And then Nakajima scored in the 34th minute, giving one back to Sanfrecce Hiroshima. But then Rio Germain getting that red card in the 51st minute. And then from then on, it just went from bad to worse for Sanfrecce Hiroshima. And unfortunately for them, they're out. But, they were the better team, I would say. In that first game, 6-1, the game was already done. But when you make a mistake like that, you got to do better. You got to do better to make sure that sort of thing. And it surprises me that of all teams, it happened to a Japanese team, which are known to be more, organized and stuff. Unfortunate for them, but it is what it is, man. And then Al Sharjah, Shabab Al Ali, that game also went to penalty after Munas de Boer actually scored a 94th minute equalizer to take the game to extra time. Again, not impressed with Shabab Al Ali. Sorry, Erfan. I think they could have done better. Osmoon was very, very good in both ties. Very, very good. And then Sydney FC defying Jeonbuk and winning that game 5-2 on aggregate. I've spoken a lot. My mouth is starting to become dry. I'm going to let you do the analysis again, and I'm going to add on later on.
Thank you so much for that, Arya. For the tractor game, I'll just say one thing. I was very surprised that a coach like Dragan Skocic, who is experienced, I don't know why he took out his two best penalty takers in extra time, Ricardo Alves and Mehdi Torabi, who are great penalty takers. They were both taken out for whatever reason there was, and ultimately that cost them. Both great performance from Abdul Qudus Ataya in both legs. Saved them first of all in the first leg, some great saves, and then also he saved the penalty in the second leg. Sharab Al Ahly game, good performance from Osman in both games. The rest of the Al Ahly squad, though, I'm not so sure. And then he had some great passes, especially in the second leg that his teammates couldn't finish. So unlucky for him, but congrats to Sharjah. I think they did deserve to go through. And then the Sydney FC game, I watched Sydney versus Jeonbuk the second leg, and Jeonbuk actually were winning 2-0 at the end of the first half in the second leg. So they were drawing, but then Sydney during that second half were just something else. 3 goals, and they're through. So good for them. That's all I have to say.
I don't have much to add. I'm just very, very surprised that all of our predictions were pretty much all wrong. It was just such a
Let's
unique.
give our predictions for the semifinals.
Oh
Man.
God, let's see how that turns out. Fortunately, Kenta's not here, so he can't give his predictions. But Al Tawun against Al Sharjah. Al Tawun, we said we're also one of the favorites, so I think Al Tawun is going to win it here. And then Lion City Sailors, Sydney FC. I would love for Lion City Sailors to win it, but I think Sydney FC just have too much quality for them. They're not going to get lucky 2 ties in a row. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you on the Sydney FC, but I'll go with Sharjah to win the game against Al Tawun.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'm going with the more safe picks, so that it doesn't
Now
me
the
back
opposite
in
is
the
gonna
ass in
happen.
the next episode. It might as well do, but I'm going with the safe picks here. All right, so that's the ACL 2 done. Let's move on to the AFC Challenge League, which I've actually watched quite a few, which is surprising for someone like me. So East Bengal of India against Arkadog. They lost 1-0 in the first game. Al Arabi against Al which I think was the most interesting tie of all the ties that have been played in that round. Al Arabi won that first game 1-0. Taiwan Steel against Madurai United, a very boring 0-0 draw. Sverieng beating Shen United 6-2. Big game from them. And then in the second match day, Akadog continuing their form, winning against East Bengal 2-1. Unfortunately for the Indian side, they're out. And then Al Sib and Al Arabi, such a big game. I mean, it went to extra time, and Al Arabi winning it 3-2 after extra time. Very interesting tie. And then Shan United trying to come back after that big 6-2 defeat. They won the game, but it wasn't enough for them. They won that game 2-1, and then Madurai United knocks Taiwan Steel out 3-0 for them to advance. Then the games that are remaining is Al Arabi against Arkadog. I think they're going to win it. Al Arabi. It's going to be a lot closer. I'm giving my predictions as we go as well. Erfan, feel free to hop on if you want. And then Sverieng against Madurai United. I think Sverieng have just the quality. I think they're just a lot better.
Yeah, nothing much to add, but I will give my predictions. I think Al
Mhm.
Arabi will win against Arkadag, and yeah, Madura. I think they should be able to win against Cambodia. So yeah, we'll set up an interesting final in the first edition of the Challenge League.
Yes.
Okay, I
Let's
think
move
we
on
should move
to
on. Yeah,
Yeah,
to
to the AFC
women's.
Women's Champions League. So we're still on the topic of the Champions League. Erfan, I'll let you go off on this one.
Yeah, okay. So the quarterfinals took place. Incheon Red Angels defeated Bam Khatun of Iran 1-0. Very, very proud of that performance by Bam Khatun. Only losing 1-0 to the Korean champions away as well. Um, and they actually hit the post as well in the first half. They only conceded the goal in the last 10 minutes of the game. So good for them, but Incheon Red Angels, I think just too much quality in that team. Melbourne City easily beat Taishang Blue Whale of Taiwan 3-0. Urawa Red Diamonds, wow, they were one of the favorites to win the whole thing. They lost at home to Wuhan Jiangda on penalties, a 6-5 defeat. Um, Kenta would talk more about that, but unfortunately he is not here. And then Ho Chi Minh City against Abu Dhabi of UAE. This was, I think, the best game of the tie. Abu Dhabi were winning 3-0, but then I don't know what happened towards the last 10-15 minutes of the game. Ho Chi Minh just started scoring and they won 5-4. And yeah, heartbreak for Abu Dhabi.
I think one thing that I want to add for that Urawa Red Diamonds team is that I think the manager stepped down after that loss. I saw some reports on it. I'm not sure if he's entirely out, but again, don't be surprised if it happens.
Okay, so for the semifinals, that now means that Melbourne City will play against the Incheon Red Angels. And Wuhan, Jiangda will play against Ho Chi Minh City. So these games and the final will be played in a centralized venue in May. And yeah, that's finally it for our club football section. Arya.
Cool. Very, very nice. So now we'll continue with our international stuff with the Asian Cup qualifiers. Where again, we're not going to go too in deep with those because there's a lot to cover in this video. We don't want this video to be 5 hours long. Let's just go through the, the scores here. So let's start with the first game. Myanmar winning against Afghanistan 2-1. Afghans are not happy with what's going on with the national team, and rightfully so. I mean, it's just a complete mess. Manager Montoshev just doesn't seem to understand that he's not the man for the job. Shouldn't be losing against teams like that with all due respect. After that, Chinese Taipei lost 1-2 to Turkmenistan. Philippines winning 4-1 against Maldives, a very, very good result for them. Tajikistan barely winning against East Timor, and I think we got to talk about Tajikistan. We're going to talk about them later on as well, but it's weird what's going on with them. Bhutan, Yemen, 0-0, not much to add. Vietnam destroying Laos 5-0. Thailand only winning 1-0 against Sri Lanka. I think Sri Lanka can be proud of that. Thailand should be doing more. Singapore against Hong Kong ended up in a 0-0, and then India and Bangladesh, a long-awaited game from both sets of fans, 0-0. That was Hamza Chowdhury's debut for Bangladesh, and then 0-0 as well. Malaysia, 2-0 win against Nepal. Syria beating Pakistan 2-0, and Lebanon beating Brunei 5-0. Big game from them as well. Do you have anything else to add, Erfan?
Just want to say that India got Sunil Chetri back, right, for this window.
They did.
Um,
They did.
yeah, and I don't know, India just seemed like the sleeping giant that just never wants to wake up. So
Mm.
yeah, that's all I have to say for these games.
Okay, cool. So let's move on to the friendlies. There's been a bunch of friendlies that has also been played. So Erfan, I'll let you.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll
Um,
let you go through that.
so Cambodia lost 2-1 to Aruba. I mean, they beat Aruba 2-1. Although Cambodia did have two red cards. Thailand beat Afghanistan 2-0, and Nepal beat Singapore 1-0. Lebanon 4-0 win against Timor-Leste. Sri Lanka beat Laos 2-1. Sri Lanka had a good window actually. I think they can be proud of
Yeah,
themselves. Belarus destroyed Tajikistan 5-0. I think we'll talk more about Tajikistan in a second. India beat Maldives 3-0. Sunil Chetri also got his goal after coming back from retirement. Vietnam won 2-1 against Cambodia. Hong Kong defeated Macau 2-0. Jordan drew 1-1 against North Korea before the qualifiers started. And Oman drew 0-0 against Sudan. So, Tajikistan, what do you think, Arya?
5-0 lost to Belarus in a friendly, and then barely winning against, what was it, Timor Leste? Who was it again? I forgot. Timor Leste? Yeah.
Yeah, Timor-Leste.
For a team that defied expectations at the Asian Cup, significant decline. I don't know what's going on with them. Is it just the fact of like maybe we just hyped them up too much and they just weren't that great to begin with? Or is it no, they had the quality and they just dipped in that and they're declining? I don't know, but it's not looking good for Tajikistan. They got to do better than that, in my opinion. That's what I have to say.
Yeah, I think the change in coach was also a big factor. I mean,
Yes, exactly.
Peter, he left after the Asian Cup, and yeah, it's just been disappointing for them. And I hope they can find their form again because they were a very exciting team to watch at the Asian Cup.
They were. All right, let's move on to the 2025 AFC Beach Soccer Asian Cup, which is now currently going on. I mean, it started just what, last week or something. It's a very fast tournament. We're already like in the at the quarterfinal stage,
Semifinals.
semifinal
Yeah.
stage. Wow. So that's a big insane. I'll just go through the groups if you want to add anything, Erfan. I know you watched some games. I've only watched one game, to be honest with you. The games are very early morning for me, so it's tough for me to catch up with them. Group A: Thailand, Lebanon, Kuwait, India. Thailand and Lebanon went through. Um, Group B: Japan, Saudi Arabia, China, Iraq. Japan and Saudi Arabia, as expected, to go through. Group C: Iran, UAE, Indonesia, Afghanistan, Iran, and UAE, again as expected, went through. And then Group D: Oman, Bahrain, Malaysia, Vietnam. Oman winning all three of their games. And then Bahrain, Malaysia, and Vietnam. That game, they ended on 3 points. Bahrain, Malaysia, and Vietnam with two. So it was interesting. It was very open for the second spot, which is pretty interesting. And that leads us to the quarterfinals. Saudi Arabia winning against Thailand 4-3. Iran just destroying Bahrain 11-0. Japan against Lebanon 8-3. And then Oman beating the UAE 7-2, which leads to the semifinals. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to cover the whole tournament. We're just going to mention it at in the next episode that we do. Iran is going to be playing Saudi Arabia. Japan is going to be playing Oman. I don't really have anything to add.
Yeah, I'll just add a bit. Uh, so Iran had a plus 25 goal difference.
Yeah,
Arya,
let me.
I, yeah,
It is my time to shine. It's not as bad as Brazil. Brazil's is just crazy. Plus 25 blood. What do you like? 25 is insane. Um,
in 3 games,
I
by the
think
way,
they're
3 games.
aren't yeah in 3 games. Yeah, they're the favorites to win it. If I'm not mistaken, I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be. Yeah, I think they're the favorites to win it. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I don't have anything else to add, so I think it's a good time to move on to the under 20 Asian Cup that we didn't manage to finish. We only got through the group stage. I honestly almost completely forgot about it, to be honest with you. But we'll go through it really fast, and I don't even know what happened, man. It happened all way too fast. So in the knockout stages, we have Saudi Arabia against China, only a 1-0 win, a narrow win. Australia beating Iraq 3-2, and then Japan and Iran, which was the game of that quarterfinals, really went all the way to the penalties. Huge defensive performance from Team Milli. But some of the I was about to swear some of the worst penalties. Though I don't know what the hell that was. Essentially, gifted Japan that win. Japan going
Missed
through.
penalties by Purya Shahrabadi and Erfan Darvishali cost him at the end.
Yeah, like Erfan, man, come on, you gotta score your penalties, bro. What are you doing? Um, and then South Korea beating Uzbekistan on penalties as well. Very, very big game. That game was 3-3. Very, very interesting. Uzbekistan scoring two late goals to bring the game to extra time, but eventually could not win the game. Then we go to the semifinals. Saudi against Korea. That was 0-0. Again, went all the way to uh, penalties, I think, was it?
Yes.
Winning penalties 3-2. So that's Saudi in the finals, and then Australia beating Japan 2-0. Um, the Japanese fans weren't really happy with the way they played in this tournament. A lot of them considered themselves lucky to actually even qualify for the World Cup. And I would tend to agree. I don't think they were particularly all that impressive. But, they did what they have to do. They have some times to fix the issues that are there. Um, and then for the final, Australia, that game went to penalty as well. They won against Saudi Arabia, thus making Australia the winners of the Under 20 Asian Cup. Anything to add, Erfan?
Yeah, I think I just want to say how unlucky, first of all, Iran were to play Japan, even though they finished first.
Yeah,
Then I want to mention how close the youth teams have come in terms of quality to each other.
yeah,
Because in the seven knockout games, four of them went to penalties. So
yeah.
yeah,
These were all very, very close games. Exactly.
yeah,
You're very,
barely
very right.
anything to separate these sides. I think that's good to see that there are more competitive fixtures at this level.
Yes, perfect. So that's pretty much it for the Under 20 Asian Cup. Let's move on to our last topic of the day, I'm pretty sure,
Yeah.
which is actually just happened today, right? If I'm not mistaken. The
Yes.
qualifiers of the AFC Women's Asian Cup in Australia in 2026. We'll just go through the groups. Erfan, do you want to do it or?
Yeah, I'll go through the groups.
All right, perfect.
Um,
Go for it.
okay, so yeah, in these groups, there are, I think, how many groups? One, two, three, four, five, six, eight groups, and only the winners will go through to the final tournament, and they will join Australia, Japan, China, and South Korea, who have qualified directly. Okay, so in Group A, Iran, Jordan, Lebanon, Singapore, and Bhutan, hosted in Jordan. In Group B, India, Mongolia, Timor-Leste, Iraq, and Thailand, hosted in Thailand. Group C, Bahrain, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Turkmenistan, hosted in Myanmar. Group E, UAE, Guam, Maldives, and Vietnam, hosted in Vietnam. Nepal, Laos, Sri Lanka, Uzbekistan in Group F, hosted in Uzbekistan. Group G, the Philippines, Hong Kong, Saudi Arabia, and Cambodia, hosted in Cambodia. Group H, Malaysia, Palestine, Tajikistan, and North Korea. North Korea are in the qualifiers, so uh, yeah, but I think it'll be a breeze for them. But yeah, those games will take place in Tajikistan. And these games will take place between 23 of June to the 5th of July. So yeah.
That's 2 days after my birthday, man.
Woo!
Yay. Perfect. So that's pretty much going to be it. This was a long episode. I mean, it would have been even longer if Kenta was here, because he had to give his analysis. So now make the episode a bit longer. But yeah, we tried to condense it in an hour or so. Um, we try to not go in detail for absolutely everything. If that's something you guys are interested in, by the way, we would love to see what feedback you have for the podcast. If you guys would want us to go more in detail with some of the more obscure ones, like beach soccer, for example, or women's football, or this and that. Let us know. Let us know. Don't be afraid to give us your feedback and what you think about the podcast. We're learning as we go. We also have two very exciting interviews that are going to come out. I'm not going to say anything. Actually, no, I can say it. Why am I acting like we haven't announced it? So there's going to be an Afshin Rotbi interview out, former Iran coach, and Mina Tanaka from Utah Royals and Nadeshiko player. So big interview, or two big interviews to come on the Asian Football Show. So stay tuned for that. As always, thank you so much for the support that you guys are giving us. It really means a lot. We hit 500 followers on Twitter or X. We also got verified. So yeah, all of our social medias are going to be down in the description. Whether you guys are watching on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anything. And yeah, that's my final words. Have fun. Anything you want to say?
Yeah. Thank you for the for hitting. Thank you for 500 followers. And yeah, I'm very happy in the direction that the Asian Football Show is heading towards. We're putting out good content, I believe, some good interviews. And yeah, as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and follow us on all the platforms. And see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Bye bye.